Hi, welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones. I'm your host, Ainsley Brown, and in today's episode, we are going to cover supplier due diligence and zones. Now, there is emerging a patchwork of legislation around the world that, in essence, forces a review or a certain degree of due diligence to be done on your suppliers. Whether those are folks supplying building materials or raw materials, to ensure that, either, they're practicing good environmental practices or that the minerals are conflict free or the materials are free from forced and slave labor, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a patchwork right around the world, whether it be in the United States or Europe or even now in 2023, Germany has made a significant move independent of the EU structure, but the EU also has its um, own legislation that member states are dealing with. But when it comes to zones, it's not focused. These due diligence, supplier due diligence laws are not specifically focused around zones, but because of the nature of zones, they do have certain specific impact. So it starts, you could say, from the construction or build out of a zone where someone would have to ensure that their suppliers of raw materials are not, or they've been checked out and are found to be quote unquote fit and proper um, persons to transact with. So that's one side of things. But then when the zone is actually built out and then you have operations going on and the folks, companies are trading, those folks have to ensure that they're doing that due diligence, or they may be subject to that due diligence because they may not be just asking the questions, but they may be have the questions asked of them. And it becomes important, and particularly because zones are apart and yet separate from the rest of an economy based on how their legislative or regulatory design is set up. Um, that can be, expressed in different ways, but they generally are set apart. So um, these laws would definitely impact them from the perspective of one, if the host country that hosts that zone has similar laws, or if you're transacting with companies overseas that must abide by these laws, whether you are their suppliers or you are their you are that you're being supplied by them. So you may have questions to be answered or questions to ask, so to speak. Um, and zones would definitely be touched by it because zones represent a massive chunk of the global economy. There are thousands of zones scattered throughout the world, and this is going to become an increasingly important touch point for zones to deal with. And again, it doesn't matter what you call the zone, whether you call it a special economic zone, free zone, free trade zone, foreign trade zone. The basic structure is basically the same, no matter what. So this is an area to continue to monitor, continue to look out for. This is an area that zones should, so the designers, policy makers should look out for in terms of any adjustments that need to be made within their zone regimes, and the people that build the zones and then also operate the zones, operate out of the zones, as well, have to look out for, because it won't become unusual for people to be asking questions that they didn't ask before because they have certain legal requirements that must be fulfilled. And then also, interestingly enough, when the zones interact with the rest of the economy, um, there's going to be, or even just in general, there's going to be a requirement for record keeping. metrics that measure and due diligence measures and mitigation measures to ensure, because you can't guarantee things 100%, but you need to be seen to be doing mitigating measures to ensure that the your products have been environmentally sourced in an environmentally friendly way. It's free from slave and forced labor, et cetera, et cetera. You have to be seen to be doing something, and not just doing something flippantly or doing something that, I'm doing the bare minimum, but actually be doing something that's a substantial and real, um, to mitigate against these things happening within your own supply chain, so that further down the line, the people that you sell to or supply to or supplied from, these things are sorted out. So again, this is going to be an increasing touch point for zones going forward in the future. So if you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to see me do a particular subject matter, just leave me a message down below and I'll get right back to you. Bye for now.